It is. All right, boys and girls. So today we are going to read a new book. And I was reading this book the other day, and it reminded me of all the times my relatives came to visit me. Does anyone know what the word relatives means? Yes, Sydney?
Family.
Very good. It's anyone who's your grandma, your grandpa, your cousins, your aunts and uncles, and I love my family. So this book made me really happy. And with this book, we're going to learn a brand new reading strategy. It's called questioning. So anytime you have a question during this reading, you're going to raise your hand and wiggle your pinky finger, and that way I'll know to call on you that you have a question. So this book is called The Relatives Came by Cynthia Ryland. Oh, I already have an I wonder. I wonder why the relatives are coming. Let's find out. It went in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop, and some boxes of crackers, and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. It's really early. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. Do you have any ideas where they're going? Where does this family live that the relatives are visiting?
Chicago.
Chicago? Maybe you're right. Let's see if it says. So they drank up their pop and ate all their crackers and traveled all those miles until they finally pulled into our yard. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. Then it was into the house, and so much laughing, and shining faces, and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from one room to another. Those relatives. Look at all those people. It's so many. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good, since there weren't any extras. So a few of us squeezed in and slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown around the closest person, and some with an arm across the person and a leg across another. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend to the garden, and they fixed any broken things we could find. They ate up all their strawberries and melons. They promised we could eat all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. Does anyone have any I wonders or questions so far?
I wonder what kind of music they're playing. Look at all those instruments.
Yeah, that is a lot of instruments. This is a guitar. I wonder what this is. Do you know what this is? Maybe a
big violin.
Maybe a big violin. Yeah, because this is a violin and that one looks bigger. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road, then crawled back into our beds and felt too big and too quiet. We fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains. And they thought about the dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. I have a couple of I wonders. Does anyone else have any I wonders?
I wonder when they'll see them next.
It's a good question. Maybe we'll find out. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. So to answer that question, maybe they're going to see them next summer. The end.